Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Dean Speaker Series on nutrition. We have some great panelists that will speak with you today. My name is Nancy Juarez. I work with SEI, the Strategic Employer Initiatives Group, and we put on the career events for you, bring the panelists to you. And today I'm going to introduce Courtney Baker, who will introduce the panelists for you. Thank you so much for attending. I would suggest at this point that you maybe write down a couple of questions for either on camera or in person that you would like to ask for questions and answer later. So think of some things you'd like to ask. Thank you so much for joining us, and I will turn it over.
Thank you, and thank you for being here today. Like she mentioned, my name is Courtney Baker. I am the Director of Nutrition and Dietetics here at Grand Canyon University. And I'd like to welcome our panelists here, and hopefully they can provide you with some great insight about the profession of nutrition. We would keep going. Our first panelist, we have Stephen Ortiz. So you can certainly read the background information there, but I'll go ahead and let him highlight some of his favorite things that he can share about his pathway to becoming a registered dietitian.
Thank you, Courtney. So my pathway was a little different, I believe, than some of my fellow nutrition students at ASU. Fortunately, I had previously already been working for the WIC program while going to school at ASU. Upon completing my DPD coursework, I was able to apply for the WIC track internship, where they were able to support me, where they offered me my full salary, and I just had to dedicate 3 years back to the program after I had completed it. After completing that, and during my internship, I was introduced to a master's program that focused on maternal and child health at ASU, and I was able to complete that shortly after becoming an RD. And I can say now I have my MS and working as a registered dietitian for WIC.
Perfect, thank you. And next we have Lauren Kemmer. Lauren is currently with the Dairy Council of Arizona, so I'll let her talk a little bit about her pathway as well.
Thanks, Courtney. So as Courtney said, my name is Lauren Kemmer. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist with the Dairy Council of Arizona. My title is Manager of Sustainable Nutrition. So what that means is I work with other dietitians as well as other health professionals, along with some culinary, and there's some food insecurity there, but targeting all of these different groups and really promoting dairy, why it's beneficial to eat it, why it's a great food to consume just overall. And me, for when I went to school, so I went to school at University of Arizona, and I did both my bachelor's as well as my dietetic internship through that. That was an ISPE program, an individualized supervised practice pathway. So that was quite a few years ago now, but I've been a dietitian for 6 years since then. I've also worked in school nutrition as well, so I'll talk a little bit about that. And now I'm at the Dairy Council, and it's fabulous.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lauren. And then last but certainly not least, we have Emily Orvos, who serves as our campus dietitian here at GCU. So Emily, if you don't mind introducing yourself and kind of your pathway to this point.
Thanks, Courtney. So again, my name is Emily Orvos, and I work here, right up the street, actually, at the health center. So I was a competitive figure skater growing up. I was always an athlete, and I was really interested in how nutrition benefited my performance as an athlete. And once I saw, those benefits, I really wanted to help other athletes and other active individuals with their nutrition as well. So I knew I wanted to be a dietitian pretty shortly, entering college. So I had a pretty direct path. I went to University of Missouri, which is in Columbia, Missouri, and they have a 3-year coordinated master's program. So that's the program that I did. And so I finished my undergrad, my dietetic internship, and my master's in those 3 years. So then I sat for the RD exam, and then my first job was a fellowship at Arizona State in the athletic department. So I was able to do that for a couple of years. And then I worked a clinical job in clinical oncology with Dignity Health. And then I've been here for about a year now. So I see regular students, I see staff members, I see student athletes, and it's really an awesome job. I love what I do here.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. And what's fantastic about the three of you is that you all have very different pathways to nutrition. So Stephen went a route where he did an accredited bachelor's program, a dietetic internship program, and later chose to do his master's. Lauren did a program where she did the bachelor's program and then did the ISPE, which is a different type of internship program than the standard that Stephen went through. And then Emily did what was called a coordinated program. So all of those are combined, which is also different than a lot of GCU students' pathway. So the GCU pathway that we have with our master's program is a future education model program. So there's a variety of different strategies and different pathways that people can take to get to this end result, which is great. The first question is, what inspired you to go into nutrition, and how did you find out about the opportunities in your area of specialty? So I'll go ahead and start with Lauren, if you don't mind, and then we'll move down.
So what inspired me to go into nutrition? That's a great question. So first, I love food. I mean, as most dietitians do. I think it's great that food can be such a wonderful way of showing so many different forms of expression. So whether that's culture, whether that's religion, whether that's creating memories as a family, and celebrating, of course. Celebrating with food, always great to do. So I love that food has that aspect. And then along with that, helping people. This is a great field to get into. If you really have that servant's heart, you want to help other people and lead healthier lives. So it's a very rewarding pathway to go into. And as far as what areas were in my specialty, so I found out about the Dairy Council. Dairy Council does a lot of internship program rotations already. My program didn't, and I think a few years after it, it became ag focused. So there's definitely that highlighted piece in Dairy Council. But before that, when I was in school nutrition, so I worked for a school district and I served as the menu planner. So I created all the 5-week cycle menus for breakfast, lunch, and snack. And I love that job, great benefits for that job. And I had read in a school nutrition magazine that another state had a dairy farmer come in and have a calf into a classroom, and all those kids got to see the calf, really highlighting that farm to table story with the local food. And I thought, why not do that in Arizona? We have great weather year round. Is there such a thing as dairy farms in Arizona? So I found that out pretty quickly when I researched the Dairy Council. And so there's many programs that the Dairy Council has online, through curriculum, through free materials for anyone to order. And we actually organized several calf visits at my school district when I still served there. And that was a great experience. Those kids loved the calf, and us as adults too. I mean, cows are just the best. So it was a great experience. So that's really how I got exposed to the Dairy Council.
Yeah. So I already kind of touched on how I got into nutrition, with me being a figure skater growing up. And I think another layer to that too, and I think, Lauren did a great job of talking about how being a dietitian really is, a servant's job. You really are, serving people, and it really is a really great helping profession, because so much of our job comes with, that individual counseling and, growing relationships with the people that you're working with. And I think a part of my job that I really like is that I get to kind of share with, young women, especially, and young people in general, things that I wish I would have heard when I was a young, I guess I'm still young, but when I was a competitive athlete, I get to tell, athletes and active people things that I wish I would have known, that, it's okay to eat, and it's, we don't want to be scared of food, and food is there to help us. It's fuel. And so I get to, tell people these things that I, didn't get to hear when I was that age. And as far as finding opportunities in sports nutrition, when I was at Mizzou, I interned in the athletic department for 4 years. And so that was really kind of my start in sports nutrition. And then in sports nutrition, you do have to be pretty very self-directed as far as, finding experience and finding, different ways to gain experience in that. And so, I did a lot of research of how can I get more experience, what can I be doing? And so in between my last 2 years of grad school, I also had an internship that summer with the dietitian for the Kansas City Royals, actually out here in Arizona. So that was a really awesome opportunity. And then that really kind of kickstarted, my last year of grad school. And then I moved out here. So that was, a really good opportunity as well. And I really love what I do now because not only do I get to work with athletes, but also just, active individuals as well. So it's a good balance of a lot of different areas that I really like.
That's cool. I'm not gonna lie. I'll answer the question and then I'll praise more. But so what inspired me to be into nutrition was I was a weight restricted athlete as well. I wrestled for 12 years, competed competitively in college, and I think I did just about everything wrong that I could have possibly done. So like even in college, I walked around maybe 160, and frequently throughout the season, I would drop to 141, work out 3 to 4 times, not eat, limit my water intake, take supplements. So it was really just, like as the girls had mentioned, like it was a very convoluted messaging. Like as an athlete, there was never clear understanding of what I needed to do to improve my performance, because I'd be on the mat and literally my body would feel as if I was full of lead. I could not move. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Just the messaging wasn't there for me. So what inspired me to go into nutrition was to have a better understanding of why I was feeling this way, why I was so injury prone, why I was losing so much energy in the middle of competition. And honestly, I wanted to be more of like a sports nutritionist, kind of emphasizing that, focusing on that younger generation to kind of give them that education and be like, there's more to it than just exercising or just, working out frequently throughout the day. However, I would say how I found out the opportunities in my specific specialty, I honestly stumbled into it. So when I came back from Kansas, graduated with a bachelor's degree, I started looking for individuals that knew about what dietetics was, because I had heard whispers of it, but even when I was in Kansas, no one really could point me in the right direction. So fortunately, I had found this individual that was also from my hometown who was a dietitian, who focused more on like food service, but was able to at least guide me in some direction of what I needed to do to become a dietitian. So he said, start taking classes at CAC and find a nutrition related position. So that's exactly what I did. And crazy enough, I applied for a community nutritionist position and it ended up being for a WIC position. And then somehow I landed that job and I have been with WIC for the last 7 years. And honestly, I think I found my real passion to just be in both maternal and child health and community nutrition.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, our next question. Do you have words of wisdom for students who are considering a career as a nutrition professional but haven't committed to the pathway yet? And for those students who are on the pathway, is there anything you can share with them to help them move forward? And what do you think will be their biggest obstacles in entering the profession? So I think this time, Emily, if you're okay with starting, or if someone else is ready, then you're welcome to start.
I sat in the middle chair, so I wouldn't be the first one to answer any question. But so as far as, if you're considering becoming any kind of nutrition professional, really think about, what it is you want to do and how in depth you want to go with it. I think something to know about, becoming a registered dietitian is you are the nutrition expert. And so you have such a broader range of what you're able to talk about as a registered dietitian than if you were to just get a degree in nutrition and not go the registered dietitian route. If you don't become an RD, you're so much more limited in what you can do and what you can say and what you can help people with. So really kind of think about your ideal job and what does that look like on a daily basis. And if you really can picture yourself being someone who, talks about nutrition and educates people about nutrition and about food for the majority of your job, then I really would commit to going the RD route, just because you're going to be so much less limited in what you can do if you don't do that. And then as far as, helping move forward and biggest obstacles, for me, it was organic chemistry, but, but just know, nutrition is a science. And so you will take a lot of science classes. They will be very challenging. Do your best to manage your time well, memorize the Krebs cycle, and, really know that the internship and the classes, the end goal is worth it. For as rigorous as it is, it really does prepare you well for the real world.
Stephen, you can go ahead and go next if you're ready.
So I was with Emily. I thought, sitting furthest away from Courtney would. All right. I would say similar to what has been successful for me. So if it is something that you guys are interested in becoming a registered dietitian, I agree with what Emily said. I have peers that I work with right now who kind of regret not going down that path and taking something like a community nutritionist degree, because a lot of things, especially in like the healthcare field or even just in community nutrition, they're starting to either raise or like level up that RD position and require individuals to have certain job responsibilities. And that's been very prevalent, especially here in WIC in Arizona. But I would say one of the things, if you are interested and just haven't quite turned that corner yet, definitely seek somebody out that is in, the hospital, sports nutrition, dairy council, school nutrition, other food service realms, community nutrition. Seek them out or ask, even like Courtney or your professors, if they have anybody in those fields that you can speak to and talk to them. Ask them, what a day-to-day job looks like, what it's going to take for the current experience or criteria to be successful in that position. Ask them what their salary is, what their work life or work schedule life is they able to manage, have a family and still work. All those little things are going to be things that you want to consider moving forward. So I think that's going to be very important to ask those individuals. And I think even for those like you already are, you want to be an RD, that's something that you're passionate about, I would still do the same. Find somebody in these fields that areas of interest at least. That way that individual can be a mentor or at least a pillar for you to lean on in the future. That way, as you're going through your coursework, because it is the future education model, as you're going through this curriculum, you have somebody that you can bounce ideas off of. If you're facing some type of personal obstacle, you have somebody that you can talk to and they can help work you through it. But I feel like that's going to be a very important thing, just to pick out a mentor and have that relationship.
Absolutely, I would agree. And I think that it's so important to get into that network for students to get those experiences. You all probably would agree that the nutrition profession is a very tight-knit network where a lot of people know others. So you make a good impression on one, it correlates to the next, and they'll think about you for those experiences to get that effect. But also, I think what you guys have highlighted is that nutrition and getting that RD credential is so diverse. Once you get that, you have the doors opened to you to a variety of different areas and avenues that you can go into. So awesome. Lauren, I'll let you take on this question.
All right, so words of wisdom, considering the nutrition path, but haven't quite committed. So I would say, to echo exactly what Emily said, you will be taking a lot of science courses. So if science isn't your forte, never fear, because there are other options that you can do. Work with a mentor, hire a tutor, take some transfer courses, which is what I had to do for organic chemistry. And really just the other cool thing about considering this nutrition pathway is that I know a lot of dietitians who got their RD, but then they went on to become a PA or a nurse practitioner. I know someone that is a hospital administrator. So that all started with the RD. So it's a great stepping stone for furthering a career in medical professions. So keep that in mind too, if you're not 100% committed to the nutrition side of it. In addition to that, so for those that are on the path, I would say that just get the RD. Exactly what Courtney said. Just get the RD, because it will open so many more doors that you so many job opportunities out there for you. In addition to that, too, the biggest obstacle is going to be just getting that internship. And it's just more and more competitive now with the master's degree looming. It's coming up there. So anything that you can do to highlight yourself and make your nutrition experience shine through. And what I mean by that is get some volunteer hours in, go to your food bank, contact someone in school nutrition. I can tell you there is labor shortages like you wouldn't believe. So if you want to contact a school food service department, I'm sure they'd love to have you come volunteer. They might even schedule something where you can work part-time hours and get paid. So really look into those opportunities even as a student, because the more nutrition experience you have, the better your application will then be when you are going to apply to your internship. So really think about those experiences that you can do now as a student. Getting involved with your nutrition club, Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, those are all areas you can get plugged into, find a mentor, and really find someone to help you succeed.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lauren. All right, our next question. What were some of the challenges you faced on your pathway to becoming a registered dietitian nutritionist? So I'm going to have Steven start with this one, and then we'll keep going that direction.
I would say early on, just as a lot of the individuals that I looked up to at the time weren't familiar with this profession, so they weren't able to provide a whole lot of guidance. So that ultimately kind of limited my pathways initially. For example, after coming back from Kansas and having a degree in biology, I was dead set on being at ASU, and at the time, ASU didn't have like an integrated master's program where I could finish my DPD coursework and obtain a master's degree. So I had to go back, finish the DPD coursework, pick up a second bachelor's, and then I became that internship eligible. So I would say that was probably my biggest barrier, just not having the network in that community realm that I wish I did earlier on. But I'm definitely glad and grateful that Courtney has something like the future education model, which is allowing more individuals to have a broad spectrum, or at least a variety of pathways to become an RD.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Lauren, if you don't mind taking on the question next.
All right. So challenges. I will be honest, the RD exam is hard. Not going to lie. It did take me a few times to pass. Clinical was not my forte, and I knew that going into it. So really, really study for your RD exam, guys. And I would say don't wait more than a month after your internship, because the further you wait to take the test, the longer the harder it is to try to remember all those clinicals and labs, especially if it's not your forte. So I would say, study no more than a month max or so. Really use those resources. There's so many out there. Visual Veggies is great. The Inman Guide, All Access Dietetics. I don't even think that existed 6 years ago, and that's a great platform as well. Listening to podcasts too. There's a variety of ways to pass the RD exam now, and I really wish some of those existed back when I took it, but it's all good. I passed it. So yeah, really study for that exam. Another thing I would say too, another challenge is that I didn't want to go the clinical route, and I knew that. And the good thing about the internship is you have a little bit of everything. So you figure out what you really like. I mean, when you're taking those classes in college, you could really like clinical, but then when you walk in those doors in the hospital and you actually do the job, it is a wake-up call, and maybe that's not what you want to do. So I would say I really had to research and try to find that non-traditional pathway of not going into clinical. And that did take me a while to try to find that different avenue. School nutrition is a great field to get into. A lot of positions now, you can even be a director of school nutrition, and they are looking for that dietitian credential. So school nutrition is a great pathway. Working for WIC, as Steven said, that's a great pathway. Sports nutrition, opening up your own private practice. So there's really just a variety of non-clinical jobs that are out there. You just really have to ask and research.
Thank you so much. All right, Emily, would you mind?
Well, I had a pretty big challenge becoming an RD. I did not get accepted into my program the first time I applied, and I had to wait a whole another year to apply again. And that was a big bummer, as I'm sure you can imagine. But I think it's really important to, use whenever a door closes, find the doors that are open. And I really tried to utilize that year. I was still in school, but I was able to tack on exercise science as a double major. I was able to get involved with things on campus that I wouldn't have had time to do otherwise. And I was able to actually get my master's because at the time, the first year I applied, Mizzou's program was only a bachelor's program. So it really was a huge blessing that I didn't get in the first time I applied, because then I was able to get my master's the next year. Just kind of know that, I think there's a stereotype that dietitians are perfectionists and type A and always have their lives together, and it's not always that way. So, just know that, when, I know it's cheesy, but when one door closes, look for the other ones that are open.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I would agree. I think you all have had me in class enough to know that I did not get in the first time I tried as well. So there's definitely lots of opportunity and growth that can take place during that time frame, and there's lots of opportunity. The good news is there's a lot of different pathways available now that weren't available back in the day. So it's important to recognize that, but also work hard to get to that point and know that if one door closes, it doesn't mean that it's the end. Awesome. So moving into our next question, which is question 4. How do you set goals and celebrate your personal achievements while progressing towards those goals? And then share some of the achievements you have attained in your career thus far. So this is a great opportunity for you guys to brag on yourselves, because you're all amazing individuals in this industry. So Lauren, if you don't mind starting for this one.
Okay, so for setting goals, and this is actually something that I learned from Damon John just a few short weeks ago. We heard him speak at the Food and Nutrition Conference that was in Orlando, and that's great, by the way, to make networking connections, so definitely go to that one year. Write down your goal. It can be, I know, it seems so cliche and so easy, but write it down and physically write it down. Typing it, actually writing it down will solidify that and really hold you accountable. The other piece to that is also having someone to hold you accountable. Most jobs, generally, you do some sort of annual review where you'll set goals and then evaluate it. But even if that doesn't exist yet, find a trusted friend, significant other, family member, and have that person hold you accountable to that goal. The last piece, too, is you also want to track that goal as well. And that can be as simple as, meeting up with that person. Monday.com is a great website. Our work is currently using it to track all of our projects. We can say what our status is, if we're stuck, if we're waiting on numbers, if we've completed it. Little confetti goes off, and it's pretty awesome. So again, the type A side, checklist. And so those are how I would set goals and progressing. So achievements, I would say one of my greatest achievements was learning to use Canva. I mean, really, Canva is so great. And I learned that in school nutrition. I did all my menus on Canva. And even during the pandemic, too, when schools were closing and, cafeterias weren't closed, by the way. We were still open and feeding the public. I'll get to that later. But so those schools, communicating, it's such a great piece. And to making flyers, handouts, all that jazz. It's a great software to learn and a great resume booster as well. So I would look into that. Also, too, I just want to switch gears. I want to highlight some of the great sustainability work that our dairy farmers are doing. They are so fantastic. They really are the backbone of the state. And the sustainability stuff that they come up with is fantastic. They're providing great nutrition to us, all at a relatively affordable price. And I just want to shout out to our dairy farmers because they're fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you. Emily, do you want to take the question next?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing that's helped me with goal setting is, and I'm sure you've probably heard this before, but set small goals leading up to your big goal. So this past April, I passed my CSSD exam, which is the Board Certified Specialist in Sports Dietetics. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but it's basically, to get that credential, you have to pass a board exam and you have to be a registered dietitian for 2 years, and you have to have 2,000 documented hours working with athletes on nutrition. So, this was a goal that I had had since, I got to college essentially. And so I'd been working towards this for a really long time. And so you kind of have to break that down into, okay, well, first I have to become a dietitian. So had to check that off first. And then I have to get those 2,000 hours working with athletes. Check that off. And then I just start studying for the test, which was the hardest test I've ever taken in my entire life. If you thought the RD exam was hard, go take the CSSD. But yeah, so I think it's really important to, kind of look at your goals and break them down into smaller goals, because I think it can be really intimidating when you think about this big goal of, oh, I really want to do this, but I have no idea how to get there. Break it down into smaller steps, and that can make it that much more achievable. And then, each little milestone on your way there, you can celebrate that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, passing it to Stephen.
I know it was joked about dietitians being type A. It's so true. I mean, I feel like, I could be laid back, but there is just something about checking off boxes of things that you've completed. Satisfying.
I love a good list.
Yes. And that was going to be my tip, really. Like, because they covered it really well. Like the over-encompassing goal, making sure that you're writing it down. Great idea. Manifesting it, making sure that you're keeping yourself accountable. 100%. After breaking down the overarching goal, like having things that you need to make sure that you're completing to obtain that goal as those opportunities come. 100% agree. And I think, just to pivot a little bit, my tip would just be focusing more on maybe that week to week. Definitely a big believer right now in living in that moment, taking advantage of all those opportunities that are in front of you. And personally, in order for me to do that more effectively, if I know I have a lot of things on my plate or a lot of things I need to get done, I'm writing out what I need to do for the day or what I need to do for the week. That way, when the weekend comes and I have, my family's there with me, I'm able to spend that time with them wholeheartedly. I'm not thinking about what I need to do next week or what I need to make sure that gets done. So definitely making a list, making sure that you're keeping yourself accountable, all great things whenever it comes to progressing those goals.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. Moving to our next question. So we'd love to hear your views on the nature of the nutrition and dietetics profession as a service industry. So I think you've already kind of described that a little bit in some of your definitions. Can you explain to a prospective nutrition student who are individuals and groups that you must serve to be successful and progress? Is there anyone that is wanting to start for this question? All right, Stephen.
I can go. Starting off with the second part, any successful group or person or individual, honestly, like it's been said so far, as an RD, it's kind of giving you the keys to the kingdom. You can serve any individual, any group that you would like, but at the end of the day, just make sure your heart's in it. Try to focus on the population or the individuals that you feel like you're going to get the most out of, because that's going to be, at the end of the day, what's going to make you feel or have that most fulfillment. And I think anything past that, it'll come and go. But as long as you're happy, you're satisfied with where you're at, that's what's going to be important at the end of the day. And then the nutrition dietetics profession as a service industry. I'm actually really excited about this question. I think it's a very exciting time for nutrition. There's a lot of things that we learned about in school and things that you guys, I'm sure, are going to be learning about as well that have been brought to the forefront, especially in the community nutrition side. Reducing these siloed aspects, trying to make sure that community partners are working well together. RDs are being valuable part of healthcare professions, healthcare teams, or at least even recognized as the expert in the field when it comes to nutrition. These are all things that we've learned about for so long, but, after this recent nutrition summit, the second that's ever been done, I think the last one was 1969. it's really exciting to see how far things have come just in these, few years, and how COVID kind of, took everything to the forefront and has really gotten the wheels turning. So as a service industry, I feel like RDs are really being recognized for the value that they're bringing to the table, because you can have you know, you can have other healthcare professions that are aware of nutrition, but a lot of the practicing physicians right now, or individuals in the healthcare field, they don't really have that history or that expertise when it comes to nutrition, like what you guys are going to be taught, what we were taught in school. So I think it's really different when you have, a physician that's spending 15 minutes with a client or a participant and knows the recommendations from, the dietary guidelines, compared to an RD who has spent, years learning not only those recommendations, but taking into consideration like social determinants of health, like other factors that are impacting the community or the individual that they're serving, or having a little bit more time to just kind of peel back, some of the barriers or some of the things that they're experiencing to offer a, nutrition education where it's like nicely wrapped up in a package that helps meet their needs. And at the same time, maybe even dialing back, like, all right, like maybe talking about nutrition isn't the best thing right now. Maybe we need to focus on like what resources you need to make sure that you guys are okay. And then the next time that you come in, we can focus on nutrition and help elevate that health, or help focus on preventative health. So again, like I think nutrition right now is exciting.
Awesome. Thank you. Lauren or Emily, does either one of you want to go next?
So nutrition and dietetics. I will say, to echo what Stephen said, it is an exciting time. And I think going along with that, having that master's credential, I feel like is going to have a lot more weight to the RD. So I think it's a positive time. I will say too, though, I think sometimes, and at least this was my experience when I did my internship and did the clinical route, there's this focus that's so numbers driven sometimes. And I think we need to get back to, seeing them as a person, as another human being. And to what Stephen just said too about the barriers and addressing those first, and just really tapping into that and thinking about, how can you tailor it to your client? And, you might be so excited when you get your degree and you think it's going to be great, and you walk into a room and, you want to spend like an hour educating them on diabetes, and then they just tell you, oh, I've known about diabetes for 40 years. I got this. And I'm like, well, you're in the hospital, so I don't think you do got this. So, and really figuring out where to meet them and find that common ground too, and just seeing them as an individual too, and not just a number. So I think that's a great piece to focus on too. And as far as being successful serving which groups, I would say you got to learn them all. You really do. So whether that's from infants all the way up to the geriatric patients or clients, you really have to know how to address everyone, how to meet everyone's needs through the life cycle. It's really important because your jobs will change, over time. I mean, going from school nutrition, we were menu planning for preschool all the way up through 12th grade, but now stepping into a community role, now I'm talking to more the adult piece. So really having that familiarity with all ages, and then not even age, but, we're talking race, ethnicity, differing political views, differing religions. So you kind of have to know how to talk to everyone, and treating everyone with kindness can really go a big way. I think we need to get back to that basic as well.
Yeah. And to kind of piggyback off Lauren, when I think of, nutrition as a service industry, I think of, truly serving other people. Being a dietitian really is, it is a servant role, and it really is a people's profession. So it's so important to develop those people skills, being able to, talk to anyone and relate to people, and being able to, empathize and be an active listener and, meet them where they're at is so, so, so important. That's really all I have.
Awesome. Thank you. So I love to hear all of you, and the common theme that I heard in all of those is that We all can recognize that everybody has to eat, and we all can recognize that there's a lot of nutrition misinformation out there. But regardless of what type of population that you are serving, whether that's community, whether that's school foods, whether that's sports, whether that's women, infant, and children, you all are the catalyst to providing the quality, evidence-based information that can help someone in their health journey. Whether that's that they are on the preventative side, that you can prevent anything from happening in the beginning, or on the other side where there's something that you can help them alleviate with just the foods that they put into their body. So that's ultimately the best part to me about being in this profession and allowing that service opportunity to be there. All right, moving into our next question. What opportunities exist which allow nutrition professionals to give back to your communities? And then are there charitable organizations which offer career opportunities which students may not know about? So is there anybody that is wanting to start with this question?
So opportunities, giving back to your community. I would say a real easy one that anyone can do after you get your RD is preceptor. Be a preceptor. So you can reach out to, well, and by then you probably should know most of the internship directors at that point too, right? So really taking students under your wings, helping them, mentoring them. It really is like a cyclical profession too, because then you're helping the next generation and then they're helping the next generation. So preceptoring is a pretty easy way to give back to the community, and more specifically the dietetic community. And charitable organizations, so I would really look into food banks too. That's a really cool organization to get plugged in with, whether it's volunteering. I think now dietitians are even working at food banks, and they're teaching cooking classes and planning their own meal boxes for certain populations. So again, that's a great organization to get involved with there. I would also say too, school gardens and community gardens too. They're always looking for extra volunteers. And I would also even say, if you don't have necessarily time for labor, you can also donate your time to, whether that's graphic design, photography, for these charitable organizations as a service. And again, that's another good way to build your resume as well.
Awesome, thank you. Emily?
Lauren had a lot of really great points. Really, as far as what opportunities to give back. I mean, really, and I mean the first and second part of the question kind of go hand in hand. But really, anywhere where there's food involved, there's an opportunity, because we are the food experts. We're the food professionals. So if there is food involved, literally anywhere, there's going to be an opportunity for you to volunteer and get some kind of experience. To kind of piggyback off what Lauren said, I did, whenever I would go home for summer, winter break, there was a community garden back home that I would volunteer at. We did a lot with our food bank and our internship. Like I said, wherever there's food, there's an opportunity. So definitely, be creative in who you reach out to as well.
Yeah, definitely 100% agree. Food banks, food pantries, great opportunities, especially whenever you're in school volunteering, because those could quickly lead into something else, especially afterwards. And then, like we've mentioned previously, like those are great networking opportunities as well. But I would say maybe one that we haven't touched so far would be looking at A&D, A&D for community, the Association of State Public Health Nutritionists, which is who I volunteer a lot of time with right now. But those are opportunities where you get to meet, network with individuals, volunteer some of your time, and then those networking opportunities hopefully can turn into job opportunities in the future, but then also get you great experience. For example, like right now, I'm helping lead a work group, which I've never really done before. And just little things like that, or sitting in on some of the conversations, kind of getting an idea of what these professionals that have been in the field for 30 years and what they're trying to do and what they've had success with, kind of picking their brain. But those are great opportunities that you can volunteer and would help not only the current profession of the community, but also like helping you give back to that next generation and help raise them as well.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so we've talked a lot about the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics and how that opportunity and joining that would get you the Arizona one, which allows for a lot of those great networking opportunities. So those are fantastic places to start. All right, number 7. How did the pandemic affect your profession and your personal life? And what should students understand about nutrition in these challenging times? Go ahead, Emily.
I got this one. In school, I said I was never going to work a clinical job ever. I graduated in May 2019, right before I was basically the last graduating class before the pandemic. And what do you know? What happened a few years later? I was working in sports. Sports weren't happening. I had to get a clinical job because those were the jobs that were available. So needless to say, I am glad that I had that experience now. There's always going to be clinical jobs. And even though it's, not necessarily my forte and not necessarily what my passion area is, it is an area that's always going to be there. And it is really important to have that experience, whether it's in school or, beyond that. And then as far as, understanding about nutrition during these challenging times, again, just kind of understanding that, hopefully we don't go through another pandemic like this again. But, if it did happen, just take any opportunity you can get, because the wider variety of experience you have, that's only going to help you in the future. Like I said, I'm grateful that I have that clinical experience now, because I know that, if something were to ever happen again, that I would be able to go back to it.
There you go. Definitely in the same boat. I think I just left my clinical rotation in March, and that's when, I think a week later, everything just spiraled out of control. Yeah, so it disrupted the internship a little bit. We definitely moved to more of a remote setting. And, staying on the positive side of it, I definitely think the pandemic kind of navigated and pushed the way for a lot of this remote learning and remote opportunities to connect with participants. And with WIC specifically, it allowed the WIC program had to adapt. If we were going to continue to be able to provide services, education, resources, and food to participants, there was no other opportunity but to adapt and move remote, which I think, in retrospect is a positive thing, because that's going to allow the WIC program to continue to be innovative, continue to work and move forward. The pandemic just kind of progressed it quite a bit.
All right, and then for my side of things, so I was in school nutrition during that time, and we were approaching spring break, and the superintendent emailed everyone and said, well, give it another week. We don't know what this is yet. And then a month went by, and then another month went by, and then the school district closed. So yeah, that definitely was a challenge, but our cafeterias never did close. We stayed open, and we fed through the meal pattern waivers that existed through Arizona Department of Education. We were able to get that nutrition. I think we sold we gave for free, anyone 0 to 18, those free meals, and we did over 30,000. And that wasn't even including the meal bulk bag program, which we gave 7 days worth of breakfast, lunch, snack, dinner. Oh, by the way, I had never meal patterned and done that before, writing school menus for such a large variety of time. And also too, supply chain. There was not much to pick from, if you could even get it. So school food service was very challenging. But needless to say, to echo what Stephen said, we definitely adapted when we rose to the occasion, and God bless school district. And then in my personal life, that was just a challenging time. I will admit, I put on COVID weight. I am proud enough to say that. Yeah. Thankfully, I've lost most of it since then. But even having that nutrition degree, that mental health aspect is so important, as we've said so many times after COVID. But yeah, having that mental health is so important in your life. So just make sure to check in and have those mental health checks for yourself. And be adaptable in these challenging times. A lot of meetings now are virtual, I feel like, but don't be afraid to also pick up the phone and talk to someone, and also meet them in person too, because you're going to have such a better connection making that in-person conversation, especially when you're looking into programs too. This is what I forgot to say earlier, but when you're researching different dietetic internships, don't be afraid to schedule a Zoom meeting with the program director. Like, get them to remember you, because there's just going to be a sea of applications, and anything you can do to set yourself apart. I mean, the worst they can say is no. So you might as well try, right?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. All right. Next question. If you could give advice, if we have not already discussed it, to your undergraduate self, what would it be? Does anybody want to start with that? All right,
I
Emily.
can go first. I have a couple things. One is practical information, and the other is a little bit more, be nice to yourself. So for as far as practical knowledge, I have a lot of students that come to me and ask, what can I be doing? What kind of experience can I be getting? So when you get into a dietetic internship, there's going to be 3 components. There's going to be clinical, community, and food service. So if you can have experience in all 3 of those areas, whether it's, food service, you're working like as a barista at a coffee shop, or you're a hostess or a server or whatever it is, if you can have some kind of food service experience, that's going to be great. If you can have some kind of clinical experience, volunteering at a hospital, working as a diet tech at a hospital, working in the diet office at a hospital, those are great clinical opportunities. And then community, there's a lot of, volunteering at the food bank, or, working with a WIC dietitian, finding if you can have experience in all 3 of those areas, that is so going to set you apart. And then as far as, more, love yourself advice, don't be so scared of making a mistake that you don't learn anything. And what I mean by that is, I think there's so much pressure to be perfect and to have straight A's and have all the greatest experience and be this perfect, well-rounded individual. And obviously, yes, we should work hard. We should get good grades. We should, take calculated risks, but don't be so afraid of, messing up that you don't take any risks at all.
Awesome. Thank you. Lauren or Stephen, do you want to take it next?
All right. So those are great points, by the way. Yeah, definitely. I wish I had heard that as an undergrad. That would have been really helpful. No, but in all seriousness, another thing that can also help set you apart as well is getting familiar with your strengths. And what I mean by that is take a DISC assessment, DISC, take some sort of Clifton Strengths Finder, some sort of personality test. That way you can find out what your strengths are. And also, too, that'll help you. When you work in a team environment, you can see what other people's strengths are if you go through something like that. And I just think that's invaluable too, because when you get to that job interview, you can tell them what your strengths are because you took the personality assessment. So I think that would be great to do. Another piece to that is, don't beat yourself up if you fail. And I would even go further to say, don't be afraid to ask for help. Please, please, please. And in this profession too, and like Courtney touched on, it's a very tight-knit community. We all want each other to succeed, and we really are a family in this community. So if you ever feel like you get down on yourself for failing, maybe you don't pass the RD exam first time, maybe you don't get into the internship the first time, really having that mentor and seeking them out it's going to be so valuable to you.
Yeah, 100% agree. Again, with like the self-care, making sure that you're being nice to yourself, that would have gone so far back in the day, as it wasn't that long ago. But then again, like speaking as an introvert, like it took me a little while to kind of get out of my shell, ask my professors for help. Looking back at it, like if I would have been a little bit more encouraged to do that earlier on, I think that would have propelled me a lot further, a lot quicker. So just kind of take experiences, be okay with taking risks, stepping out of your comfort zone, trying new things. And when you get the opportunity to have, like your seat at the table, by all means, don't overthink it. Put your thoughts out there. any little experience that you've had, in your life up to that point, any experiences that you've sought out, utilize that, bring that to the table. Because a lot of the time, like, I've been at WIC for 7 years. Sometimes I even get stuck in kind of like this tunnel vision and not thinking outside of the box in some certain situations. We had an intern come in yesterday and kind of brought new life to a situation that we had been dealing with. She didn't have the experience that we had that had been there for a while, but just her, her different look or a different take on the situation made all the difference. So like I said, if you guys get your seat at the table at any time, or even if you want to kind of like put your voice out there, don't be afraid to. Please do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All great advice for our students. So now is an opportunity for any questions that you all have. So if you do have a question, we have that mic. You're more than welcome to grab that and ask your questions. And so we'll take it away. We'll let you guys take it away.
I guess kind of going off of what you were saying, Stephen, of like, I guess for me, I feel like, how do you guys kind of combat the potential like imposter syndrome of like feeling like you don't belong in a situation when there's so much more, there's always more to be learning about food? Like, how do you guys feel confident in the knowledge that you guys have?
Thank you. So that's actually something that I had trouble with a lot, as a male at the time, did not have kids. And I'm over here in WIC talking about, offering nutrition education to children. All I've learned was like what was in school, breastfeeding. I mean, these were things like I had no footing to step on. So like literally just learned like what I had in school. So imposter syndrome, by all means, like I was there, I was living it. But at the same time, again, like once you have those experiences that you can draw from or working towards, and just kind of like having those conversations with moms that were breastfeeding, trying to get a better understanding of like what they're experiencing, being kind, as was mentioned earlier, just understanding like, that's another person at the other side of the table, and some information that you may have at that time may be more valuable, even if they don't even share it. Like they're going to take it home and continue to, share what you have shared with them. It's hard, I'm not going to lie. But as long as you continue to work through it, I think the confidence does come, the confidence is there, but don't be afraid to kind of share your personal thoughts. I mean, you may not have the exact understanding of what's going on, but you have some tips that you can provide that could go a long way with that individual.
Awesome. Great answer. Did either of you have anything to add to that?
Great question. We're still working on it. I think especially in this job here, obviously I'm so glad I have Courtney on campus too. And I have asked Courtney for help on certain cases that I had no idea what to do. But being the only, practicing dietitian on campus, it can be really difficult sometimes because I am the expert, which is, kind of a weird thing to say, but you also have to be confident in knowing that like once you are an RD, you are the nutrition expert. And so that's something that I've had to remind myself of, since I've been here, is that even if I don't know the answer to something, I know how to find the answer. I have a network of people that, I can ask who can help me with the answer. When I've had really difficult cases, I've, worked with my dietitian friends on them. Don't forget that, your classmates are your friends. They're not your competition, because they're going to be your network in the future.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, and the other thing too is always still be a student. Always make sure to continue to do professional education courses, even if it's something you're interested in. And to echo what she just said, ask for help when you need it, and it's okay to admit if you don't know. That's okay. That's all right. But then say, "Oh, let me get back to you as well. I don't know, but let me get back to you." So, yeah, don't feel like you have to be perfect 100% of the time. And two, with that, whatever job you end up having, your company that you are working for should hopefully train you. but I can speak for Dairy Council anyway. We revert back to the experts at National Dairy Council. So we're just one state out of 16 other states and regions. So we have that network we can tap into. So I'm sure your organization will have some sort of other network of professionals that you can contact, along with past classmates, past interns, and yeah, really, and mentors too as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you kind of caught me off guard, but I definitely feel like I do have a lot of experience, and it just did not come to the forefront for me. But as Lauren was saying, like, it is okay that you don't have all the answers. You guys do have, your mentors or individuals that you can pull from. Like WIC does provide a lot of nutrition or breastfeeding education, nutrition education. And I think one of the things that especially got me by, like in the beginning, at least when I was counseling individuals on something like breastfeeding or offering nutrition education, there was a time where a mom literally called me out in the office. She was like, "Well, you're not a woman, you don't know." And I just let her know, I was like, "Ma'am," he's like, "You're 100% right." I was like, "I don't, have that exact experience." So I was like, based off of what I've been, taught thus far, kind of giving an idea of like what it's supposed to look like in some ways. And then letting her know, like, if she would like additional education or guidance or support, there are resources available. And that's definitely a way where you can kind of pivot and offer that as well.
Awesome. Yeah. So fabulous question. And I think I can just echo on what all of you are saying. And I think you would all be in agreement with me in saying there is no way to know every single thing about nutrition. It's so evolving. There's always new research. There's always something new that's coming out there. But what my hope for many of you getting your undergraduate degree now is that science foundation is what's going to guide you in the future. You can look at newer research. You can look at newer concepts. You can see if this crazy person on YouTube that's trying to sell nutrition information, you can gather that and you can take it back to the science and say, is that factual, or is that even how that process works? And that's the foundation that you're able to take now so that you can take that new information in medical nutrition therapy, in food nutrition management, or whatever area you decide to work in. You have that opportunity with that foundation to be able to use that critical thinking and answering those questions. And so, like they had mentioned, it is completely okay to say, I don't know, but go back and learn and grow and then come back with that understanding. Awesome. Any other questions that we have from students?
I guess I was just going to ask, with like social media and misinformation and all that kind of stuff, how do you like take that and then turn it into something that's still inspiring for people to hear without necessarily like telling people like, oh, you're wrong about this or that? And then also kind of going along with that of like body positivity movements and all those kinds of different things. Like, how do you balance that as a professional, but also like still be empathetic towards other people?
Yeah, that's a great question. Does anybody want to take that one?
I talk about social media misinformation almost every single day because I work with college students. So great question. But I think something that, and this is something that I've had to be better at, is naturally I'm very blunt and very direct. And so it's very hard for me to say kindly, like, hey, maybe this isn't like the most accurate information. Like, it's so hard for me to not just be like, that's stupid. Like, please don't believe that. But I think it's important to kind of be curious about, what made you want to try this diet, or, what interested you about this, kind of get curious about where they're coming from. And that way, that can only help you understand kind of where they're coming from. And then you can kind of meet them with where they're at with that. So many fad diets out there, right? And I think, a great example is I have so many people that come to me and say, oh, like I've been eating less carbs. I'm like, okay, like, why have you been eating less carbs instead of just going straight to well, you need carbs, kind of ask like, why have you been doing that? Do you feel like it's been helpful for you? Where did you hear that? Did someone tell you to do that? Just kind of asking those curiosity questions can be, really helpful. And that way, they feel like you're trying to understand them and trying to help them and not just tell them they're wrong right off the bat.
Yeah, I agree. As she was saying, like, it definitely helps build that rapport that when you go to offer the education or you go to like turn the corner for them, they're a little bit more receptive to you as that healthcare professional. But as the healthcare professional, social media really interests me. But I feel because, as we've gone through school, we definitely emphasize like evidence-based knowledge, and taking all of those skills with us. Like personally, I think social media influencers that have very little background in nutrition share, even though it may be misleading or convoluted, not exactly the truth. They do a really good they have a really good way of providing their messaging. And I feel like as nutrition professionals, we have to jump on that train somehow and make the, actually evidence-based education that we have, stored up, or resources that we can pull upon. We have to figure out how to make it exciting the same way that they do. And personally, that's kind of where I'm at. Like I said, I feel like it's very interesting, but I just haven't figured out a way that would best fit, keep it true to myself, but still make it fun and exciting and still be able to like help break up some of this information. And then the other part, just like as Courtney had mentioned, nutrition's always evolving. A personal fear of mine is like, well, I'm going to put something out there, and then as a nutrition professional, I'm going to get picked apart. But then again, that's another aspect to it. It's like, well, how do we provide content that's going to be continuously evolving as well, and somehow get the community that we're serving, get them on board with that idea as well, that nutrition and health is constantly evolving. And just because something was taken, was truth and found in like multiple articles, back, 10 years ago, it's like, well, 10 years down the road, a lot has changed, and this is kind of where we're at now. So just kind of figuring out a way to kind of keep all of those different stakeholders involved and provide that nutrition education, I think is going to be key moving forward. So definitely take that in consideration as you're learning, what you're learning in classes, and try to figure out like, how can I present this in a way that is interesting, exciteful, and then can help build that base.
You have anything to add?
Yeah. To echo again what Steven said, start to follow other dietitians too, and they're coming out with a lot of great stuff. So really look into that, and maybe that's an opportunity to suggest, hey, have you decided to follow so, and giving them that option too. While social media, it's a double-edged sword. It can be a great platform, but at the same time, that misinformation is out there. So yeah, I would encourage you, follow other dietitians because they have some really cool stuff.
Awesome. Thank you. I think that's great advice, especially with this world where social media is so present everywhere. And a lot of times that's where a lot of that misinformation is. So how can we as a profession really change that so that the correct information is out there? Awesome. Is there any more questions from students? Good. Oh, go for it.
I guess this is more just a practical question, just because we're all talking about like continuing the education. What are ways that you guys do that? More not just like badgering you to make sure you're still doing it, but I don't know like what resources are out there, and like we have access to like articles online now through our school, but when we graduate, like I don't know how that changes, and then what you guys do.
I think it's a great question, and already being with WIC, that wasn't something that I really thought of initially, but looking back at it, it definitely could be an area of concern or something that you'd be interested in. With WIC, fortunately, we have both like local agency trainings that are monthly, and then at the same time we have state trainings, but then you also have like AZA&D, A&D, ASPHN. I'm sorry, let me go back. So the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, ASPHN, so the Association of State Public Health Nutritionists, NWA is the National WIC Association. They all like have different webinar series that you can sign up for. Just be a part of their email list, and then they'll continuously send stuff out. That way, if you need to meet hours for a specific thing, a lot of time, like as RDs, we have to have continuing education like hours, and a lot of these webinars or courses offer that opportunity as well. And then even like the State Department offers, it's like through Montana University or something, where there's like webinar courses that you can take, and it'll meet like so many hours. Breastfeeding education, it'll meet so many hours. There's all kinds of nutrition education out there. And then even signing up for things like, or being an academy member, or being an ASPHN student member, you can get those emails as well. That way, even while you're in school, like they're sending out information and that can maybe spur topics for other projects that you're accomplishing during school.
Yeah, webinars are great. Conferences are great. Lauren, I'll let you talk about Fancy, but to maintain your dietitian credential, you need 75 continuing education units every 5 years. So I'm really lucky that I passed my CSSD exam back in April, and that actually is all 75 hours for me for the next 5 years. And there are other specialty certifications that you can get. There's not just a sports one. There's one in oncology. There's one in, I think, geriatric nutrition. There's several different, I think there's like a renal dietitian one, pediatrics. There's a ton of them. But what's really nice is that, if you do pass a specialty exam, they kind of expect you to be specialized in that area. In order to maintain specialized in that area, they expect that you're keeping up with the research. So that can be one area, if you don't want to, attend conferences or go to webinars, you can, and especially if you know what area you want to go into, you can specialize in that area. And once you pass that exam, then you don't have to do, you have to do the work on top of, staying on top of the research and all that. But once you pass the test, you're good for the next 5 years.
Yeah, conferences are an easy way to get credit. I will say too, don't stress too much about getting your professional education. You'll probably hit it, also being type A, you'll probably get there within the first year or two. So I wouldn't stress too much. Obviously, don't put it too much on the back burner because then you'd have to take the RD exam again. So continue to keep up with those. So FNC, so that's the Food and Nutrition Conference and Expo. So that's the acronym. And that's offered every year in October. Of continuing ed by going to that. It is a little pricey, but if you are fortunate enough to have a organization that will comp that charge for you and allow you to go, that's a great way to get those credits. Along with that, I know National Dairy Council, the website, has a lot of webinars that are for free, and you can get your units there. What else? Yeah, your job will probably offer some sort of training for you. School nutrition also, they have their own conference, the annual national conference. That's in July every year, and that you get a ton of continuing education credits as well. You can also read journal articles as well. I think you can get credit for that. So again, I wouldn't stress too much on getting those. And also too, another great thing too, if you do get connected with someone that's a dietitian, have them log in and show you how to use that platform too. It is a lot easier than it used to be. It was not a great system before. It's pretty intuitive now, and they can show you their professional plan. They can show you how to log in hours. That way, when you're ready to go and you pass the RD, you'll know already how to register and that and upload your certificates. That.
Awesome. Yeah. So there's lots of different opportunities in all different areas of nutrition. So I was just at Fancy in Orlando, and even there's so many different avenues that you can learn from and grow from. So what's nice about some of those opportunities is it allows you to learn and keep up with that newer research that you as the nutrition professional are entitled to, right? And so that's an opportunity for you to be able to network with others, ask questions. Essentially, what I would say to your question is that it's easier than it's anticipated. I think most people want to keep learning about their area that they're passionate about, and those opportunities will arise for you. Go for it, Stephen.
Whenever you do go to these conferences or you have webinar series, whatever it may be, have a folder on your computer or something where you can go back and save it. That way, when you go to fill out the portfolio, you can pull from that information. You're not trying to think back like, well, what did I learn during this specific webinar or this specific lecture? Trust me, it'll save so much time.
Yes, I agree. That's great advice. Any other questions from our students? All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today and being here to help elevate these students into the nutrition profession. We appreciate your time and your expertise.